Okay. I call this meeting to order, public service meeting, Village of Enon, compensation policy is what we're discussing. Present today is myself, Brenda Sweet, as the chairperson, my committee members, Ben Baer, Jeremy Whitaker, and Chief Holler, Kevin Seifert, and then members of council, Paul Avery, you're gonna make me do this, aren't you? Dave Babcock, what's his name over there? Rick Hanna, and the mayor, Tim Howard. Okay, everybody's present. Did you all get an opportunity to read through the policy that we are going over, because that's what our request was for this meeting, that you would be here to go over it with us so that we can vote on it at council next week, hopefully. Okay, so we had made a few changes in it, and you probably noticed that, so let's just start off with questions. Does my committee members have any comments before we go on to the visitors, as it were?
The only thing I thought of after reviewing it is the longevity awards. Are we going to start that out as of whenever we make this applicable to everyone? I think we need to have a stance on, are we not paying, it wouldn't really be back pay, but, I feel like some people may question, if they've been here 16 years or 15 years and 10 days, and we put this into effect, and now they don't get one until their 20 year, for instance. I'm not saying one way or the other. I just feel like we probably need a united front on that.
So, well, I'm not sure how that works, but it sounds to me like if it was within reason, the council could vote to do that, or the mayor can probably decide, or the chief, depending on who it was. Mr. Mayor, do you have a comment on that?
So the question is, when does this become effective and how do you implement it? Yeah. Hadn't really thought about that. However, I think it, I think it, because we do have a few people with longevity, and I think that could be an issue.
Right. And I wouldn't necessarily say, they would get 15, 10, and 5, but maybe it would be, we could give them their 15-year longevity amount, or the closest one.
The closest one they were to, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it was 10 years, 15 years.
But there has to be a cutoff between 15 and 20. I mean, if
Right,
they're coming up on
you wouldn't
20,
give them
you
one
wouldn't give them for 15.
that they haven't received yet. If they've been here 17 years or
Right.
even 19 years, they wouldn't get their 20. But then begs the question, do they wait a year and get their 20 and we give them the 15 now? That's I don't know.
Chief?
Would you maybe possibly put some wording in there like you could go back with, if anybody met it within the 24 months of passage, you would meet it, and that's 2 years. So because that's like almost halfway, but it's a nice round number, and then they were coming up on their next 5 anyway. I don't know anybody even. I think everybody's kind of that, but I mean, if you
Well, also, too,
know
if
where they're at,
everybody realizes that this is new policy,
that too.
sorry, it's new policy. We start from now with new policy. Dave?
I actually agree with that.
I know within like 10 days, that would be.
90 days away from your 10-year, and he's 15 months away from his 10-year. Or I'm sorry, just went over his
Right.
10.
Just went over, right, and that's
Then-
being said, yeah.
Then you get it because it came 10 days from now, you get your bonus. He went over 10 days before.
Right.
And
Right.
doesn't get it.
No, I understand, but at the same time, I mean, that's something that could be, did you
Go
want to
ahead.
say something before me?
No.
Something that could be petitioned for. I don't know what the proper word is, but, it's like for an exception. I mean, because we can do exceptions, right?
What if we went halfway? we kind of went to a halfway point, take what Mike said, and if there is somebody that was like 2 years out from, they had 17 years in, okay? You give them their 15. And if somebody's like 2 years away, then the other way, they're gonna have to wait. It's not like it's gonna be right on top of each other. There would be at least two and a half years to go halfway. Just a thought.
And it's a one-time thing anyway, because it's only new once.
Right.
It's
So
only new
that's
one
true.
time. And I don't know how many employees that would be affected by that.
I don't think I have another suggestion.
3 or 4, that's just
Okay,
good. Well,
Mike?
Well, since we started this in 22, maybe you could just say you would prorate it back to January of 2022 when kind of started talking about it. But up from there on out, like you said, it's new policy, and you just have to catch it the next time.
That would catch those.
That way, it's new policy, and it's really right when we start talking about it. Again, just a suggestion. Don't.
What do you think, Jeremy?
there's 2.
But like I said, it's just a one-time thing. And does it have to be written in here since that's a one-time thing?
No, I don't think it needs
It's
written in
just
here.
what we need to let our,
Your
Right.
second sentence, on the, really it's the second sentence says it's crucial that the village provide a clear, easy to understand process about how they are compensated.
true.
And this isn't clear. So I would recommend a change of some point. because
Either,
I had 3 questions in here. When is it payable? Is it at the end of the year of their anniversary? And when is it effective? Pretty much going to the same, because I had the same thought that Jeremy did, is that
I think
the
what,
effective date is, and how you're gonna implement it needs to be a little more cogent than saying, okay, you can petition for it or something like that, because that's not gonna
That won't,
probably
yeah.
go well.
How many people are we
I think-
talking about?
I think it's, excuse me, I think once it's decided, why couldn't you do like an amendment to this?
Now, I think we definitely need to put in, as Dave was saying, is it on the day that they meet the 10-year mark or
Their
whatever
anniversary or
threshold it
whatever,
is, or is it at the end of the year? We do need to decide that would need to be included in here.
I actually
Now,
apologize for that. I'm sorry.
As far as the part where we're gonna catch somebody up that may miss it, I don't know that necessarily needs to be in here, since this is gonna be from here forward.
Right.
But
The one time.
But we did put it on, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
we did put it on in paragraph 4, placement of employee range. Initial placement is there for the salary. So this would be the initial placement for their bonus, if you're gonna be consistent.
Does this include part-time employees in it too?
Mrs. Sweet, if I make
Sure.
one comment that Jeremy made, I think it ought to be clear, you hit that anniversary date, you get your bonus. You hit the date, you get the money. That way, everybody knows,
agree
like,
with that,
when you
yeah.
hit your anniversary date, based upon what your personnel record is, you get the check.
And that's probably better off for us financially as well. It may be
Yes.
spread out throughout the year instead of cutting
Exactly right.
$20,000 in December
Totally agree with
or
that.
January.
On 5.3, usually you could put in a special and unique considerations. You might want to add in there that this is not meant to disadvantage any employee, and at that point, you could look back at that, where you could, if somebody was coming up on a particular situation where it was going to be for their betterment, that we could go ahead and give them the next step up, or they would do in that questionable area.
That reminds me of something that I was going to ask. When we hire, especially police officers, they get paid according to prior experience too, correct? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, first, I actually meant to put up on anniversary date when I was typing this out, because that was somewhat a reference. Thank you, Mayor, for pointing that out. That was kind of what it was. And two, this would just be longevity as a village employee,
Village
not
employee,
as
okay.
into the service.
Okay, not a total of all years.
Yeah,
Okay.
not service credits.
Okay. So where were you gonna put the? on
Under the
anniversary date?
longevity, where it literally said longevity at years, I was gonna put paid upon anniversary date of hire, but I just
here.
didn't type it in there. It was in one of my notes to insert that, and it just didn't happen.
Kevin, do you have anything with anybody's, the employment dates? To see if we're even gonna run into a problem?
I can't think of anything without looking at them right now.
I would
their
say
hire
we're
dates.
for
I don't-
sure gonna have a few
Yeah.
that are gonna be
I mean, I-
within.
I do know Christy just made her 25 year, I believe, is what I was told. I meant to tell her happy 25 years the other
And
week.
you've got what, 16?
I'll be 15 in September, and then
Okay.
Officer Dunham will be 5 in July.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a couple.
Right, I would anticipate
Yeah.
a handful.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not gonna be,
So,
But I mean, if it makes it by May, it's fine.
I mean, we have such a humongous number of
Workforce.
employees to be concerned about. Tongue in cheek, as she said it. All right, anything else?
Why not?
I mean, have you resolved that one?
I
Start over.
felt like we did. Do you not think so? Speak, Dave.
What's the answer?
Um,
How are you gonna do someone that's just went over their 15 and therefore doesn't get it versus someone that's gonna come up on 15 within a week and does get it? Since you were paying it on an anniversary date, which I totally agree with, but it wasn't in there, which is why I asked end of year or on anniversary. But how did you resolve then? 'Cause I missed it.
The other question,
Yeah. What's the retro date, I think, is you're asking, right?
well,
Is there a retro date, or is it just, this is the effective date and that's it?
because, to me, because it's a one-time event, because this is a brand-new policy, it will never happen again unless, of course, the policies change and it'll have to be dealt with at that time. But right now, I don't know that it has to be in the policy. It's just something that we vote on and tell our fiscal officer that that's how it's gonna be for these people, for those employees. They'll just, I mean, we don't know how many we have, so you're just coming up on your 15.
Yeah,
Was he
But
just
we need to
hit
come up
her?
with an amount of time.
yeah, effective
If
immediately.
it's gonna be
or-
2 years or 2.5 years, this is the cutoff date.
For this one time,
Yeah.
and it has to be written in the policy.
Well, again,
See, that's my
Either written
question.
or an amendment, so everybody knows.
the policy that we're supposed to be approving this council has where, this new policy has where the initial placement is for wages.
Okay.
Already in it. So why wouldn't we do that for bonuses as well? Or longevity bonuses?
Yeah, because we do have employees that have been here longer than 5 years, but maybe not necessarily 10, and I could see that coming up. So maybe an effective date, effective
Okay,
January
so-
23 or
I mean,
May
Where does
23.
it go in here?
Well, I think, like you said, it should probably be under paragraph 4, placement of employee in
Placement,
range.
initial placement?
Initial placement, and then maybe B would be, just have some kind of longevity sentence in there.
But I do agree it needs an effective date, or else you're going to catch me at my 5:10 and catch me up for my 5:10 also. I used me as an example for fun, so there's nobody else to talk about.
No one else to talk about. Okay, so we actually have A, B, C, and D here and make B a longevity. I'm, don't even know how to word it.
Initial placement, that would have a subparagraph 1 and 2 is the recommendation of it. That 1 is for salaries or wages, and 2 is for longevity bonuses. Well, where are you gonna fall on that initial placement? And then that you're only gonna get 1 bonus. You know, Mike's been here almost 15 years. Does he get his 5 and his 10 now because he's?
Get his nearest
Yeah,
bonus,
because
get his,
I would,
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
myself, I would say the nearest one,
the nearest.
I
yeah.
the one that you just passed.
I agree, but that's.
Right, but yeah, that needs to be
clear
laid
and
out.
cogent,
Right,
Yeah.
Clear and easy to understand.
right.
Okay, so the wording has to be what?
I think we just have to put in there effective X date. The salary ranges or whatever go into effect. Longevity pay also will be considered X date from here on out, right? Something like that. and that's it. And
So,
again,
but if you say X date, so you're saying from.
well, like, so we have
This is gonna
22.
be effective, I'm just picking a date, June,
Sure,
okay, a month.
Okay.
but
So
you
we're saying where you were at on 1 June 2021 is where you're gonna pay your bonuses?
I think in fairness, I would probably start calendar year 23, and if somebody fell in it in 23, then you pay it. If it came prior to that, because 23 is when we've been working on it, if it come prior to that, then I guess you just catch the next one. Like, Miss Sweet said, it's got to start sometime, but in the same token, I feel like you ought to at least encompass the entire calendar year 23. And if you hit one of those points, then you get it. It's either that or you peel back to 22, because 22 is the date of the current salary ranges where it talks about. So if you were going to go retro, my recommendation would be January 22 or January 23. And then that makes it simple and it follows the scope of the policy and what everything was dealt on. But makes sense? And I think you just word it literally just like that.
Retro, a little bit.
I mean,
Okay.
to me, it'd be more like January of 21.
Well, that's what I was.
It's
would be.
probably
that's
what it
I
would
was
be.
saying.
It would be.
I'd be fine with that too.
That would be 2 years
gotta know what to put.
and a little bit.
If
rather
you
than,
if you met one of the 5-year increments within January of 21 to now,
Yeah.
you're going to be due that longevity bonus.
I like that.
Okay, but again, I just want you to tell me what the wording's going to be so Kevin knows what to type in the wording to make it say what you all just said.
Kevin's typing.
Got it?
Dave, what do you suggest?
Effective January 1, 2021.
For under paragraph 4A, initial placement, I would have a subparagraph 1 and 2. I would put wages. All employees shall, and that sentence is fine. Although I wouldn't put updated in capital letters, but whatever. And then number 2,
Where's that at?
for longevity payments as referenced in paragraph 10. Initial placement will be effective where the employee was, I mean, I have to think out the sentence.
Right.
It doesn't take me long to do it, and I'd be glad to come up with it as a recommendation, but under employee or longevity bonus, I would start that out dash, and then initial placement will be where the, as of the employee's status on 1 January 2021. And then it's clear.
It's different than this one.
And there's our 2.5 years. There's your
Exactly.
2.5 years, right?
Because we're,
If,
you know.
if indeed this is implemented
Oh, okay.
this month,
Right, yeah.
Right.
It's
That's okay.
or within a month, which I know.
It's
Okay,
really
got it.
close.
Then
Okay.
just space this out.
That's great.
I mean, you can wordsmith
Because it says
that,
the same.
where I can help Kevin if
Okay,
you
yeah.
have it.
These are
Yeah.
spaced out further.
Okay,
It's like retro
I'll send
compensated.
you the Word
Effective
document
January
version of that.
1st,
Is that editable?
2021.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I'm just not
Yeah.
really sure.
To the
I got it on
nearest,
my
through the
desktop.
closest longevity platform.
Regarding the
Yeah.
employee's total
Yeah.
of years of service.
write it down.
I will, but my pen's also.
Pencil?
I was looking for the mayor. Where's the mayor's
You
section
did it, go ahead
on
and
this?
get with Dave and you can do it.
Yeah,
can do it.
that's not an
You
issue.
can do it.
I'm gonna fix my word, my capital up to
Yeah, capital updated, yeah.
capital updated.
Yeah, just get hold of Dave and you can do
It's on
it.
page 7. It's on page 7.
I'll just grab Brenda's notes and I can edit it.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was the 8.
You guys wrap this
It
up.
was on the back of page 7. Right, okay.
It doesn't either.
We done with that
Dave can type
particular
it up
thing?
in an
Anything
email.
Yeah, I
else?
think
Did
so.
you
We just
see?
need to come up with a
Copy paste.
sentence to put in there, but I mean, I think
Okay,
it sounds like we're all on the same page.
okay. And anything else y'all saw in there?
As far as, are we gonna keep those bonuses? We talked during a previous meeting, or you all talked, and I know we had some interjections on the amounts.
So on mine, it's 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, and 4,000.
Yeah,
Is that what we,
that's, yes, because he redid it, right? Yeah.
What was the-
Kevin redid it for us.
May I ask, what was the original?
The original was 2,500 for 5, 5,000 for 10, 15, 20, and 25.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think, no, that was the second
Yeah, that was the second.
iteration of it.
Okay, so we're happy with that then, the longevity that is currently printed here? Everybody?
Yeah, Rick and Paul, are you guys good with those amounts? Because I think the first one that we had, and I think it was just numbers that were thrown around, I think it was like 2,500, 5,000, 5,000, 7,500, and 10,000 maybe.
Something like that, yeah.
Then it went down to 2,500 for 5 years and then 5,000 for the rest. And myself, I thought, I think there was some others too. Thought that may be a little high. So what we came up with last time was what's in there currently.
That's good.
Needs to be something,
Okay.
an incentive, but not something that'll be outlandish either.
Right.
Anything else?
Like I said, I get a pin when I meet my
Same here.
10-year and 15-year and 20-year. I get a little label pin.
We get fake stones until we hit 20.
Would you like us to come attend meetings at your place?
Might help out.
Right? You might be looking for a job after early. No, I'm kidding. Oh, you know Jeremy?
Anything else?
So the other thing we talked about, everybody.
Everybody.
The other
Anybody,
thing we
everybody.
talked about last time that we brought up that, kind of made sense to me, and, I'm obviously not the only one deciding this. So when we do our yearly evaluations, people that work for me tend to always want time off. We'd thrown it in here, we want to run it by everyone. If that makes sense to, we have something in here where the increase could be 1% to 5%. So you would take whatever percentage the department head comes up with. If it's 5%, you would take 5% of the current salary of the employee. And I give my employees the option, if they want a lump sum payout, if they want, ours is a little different as far as the salary increases go. We do steps, but if this is the only way to increase their pay, they may want a 5% salary increase. But some people, most people that work for me, they'll take a week off instead of,
It affects the taxes.
It
Right.
does, yeah.
so it made sense to me to have that in there. I'm open to whatever.
Where, may I ask, where's that at, Jeremy, what page are you talking
Uh,
about?
it's page 5, it's under number 7.
See,
Page 4 on the
page
new one.
4,
Oh.
8.
Okay.
All employees, starting here, all employees shall. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not that one.
Mine was under 7A2.
Oh,
All right, so they-
8A2. Here's the new one. Slide that over to him. I don't need
Yeah,
What are you talking about?
I've got a 9.
Yeah, 8A2 on page 4.
Mother.
But I know I had a question is, where's the,
Oh, salary, okay, bonus, paid time off.
Thank you.
So you get, if I could just clarify, there would be three options.
9.
You could say,
Page 5, 9.
I want the increase,
Do I get the
just
numbers
in my
wrong?
salary over the course of my salary. Or maybe an employee has a situation where they want a lump sum,
Sure.
and they say, I would like to take that 5%, or I want time off.
Right.
My opinion is, I think that's great, and the reason, that I say that is the gentleman that helped with the putting this together, his experience as a township administrator over the years was employees loved that bonus. Even though you gotta pay the taxes, you still get that chunk of money to do something with it. And so your experience is people like to take time off.
That's my experience.
The only problem that can turn into to be a negative off the deal is if they can't get the time off when they request it. So, and that's one thing I see about us, as small as what we are. But,
Right, that's something you could
the option's
run
nice to
into
be
for
there,
sure.
but-
It is nice to be there.
But, you know, that can cause more problems if scheduling conflicts come up.
Which, you know, I think that probably needs to be up to you guys, you know, if like, so for the federal government, we can only give a week, you know, like, we can't give more than a week of PTO. But if you guys are short-staffed and are going to have trouble giving the time off, is it worthwhile to even offer it? I don't know. I just, from my experience,
But it could be a timing thing as well.
Sure.
It's like, okay,
Right.
yeah, you wanna take that 3 days off, week off, whatever it is. We're gonna have to schedule it out a little bit if that's the option that you take.
Right.
Because you still have to put in the request for that. I don't know, I think we ought to give it a shot, but Rick's got a very good point that from a timing standpoint, it may not be when somebody exactly would want the time off, if they're right in the middle of something. Or somebody else is already off, like in the police department.
Yeah, I'll say most of our folks are, I mean, the current staff I have, they're very considerate of the PD. They will try to schedule their time around work the best they can. So, and again, supervision has the final note to say, sorry, you can't have time off, which we try not to do, but yeah, I think we can make it work.
In worst case scenario, we could always reevaluate it
Well, the
after
PTO would
the.
be
Right, over a
within
year.
yeah, ours is you have to use it within a year.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
you have to take a week
Yeah.
Right,
all at one time.
Not the day
You
you
could-
Yeah.
Right.
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 They would have
Everybody's
from
taking the first
January
week
to
of January
January
off.
to use this extra 3 days or 5 days, whatever it may be.
So you put it in effect, if there's issues with it, and you have to come back and revisit in a year or whatever.
So be it.
Kevin,
Do we need to put some kind of limits on this as far as works with the department schedule or the village schedule? Do we need to put anything like that in there?
Our
Or-
policy covers
It's in the
that.
policy
Is it?
manual.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Jeez.
I haven't ran the numbers or anything, but just thinking 5%. So how you would get the amount of days, you know, you would take their salary, then you have however many working days. 5% of that would equal out an amount of days. I don't know if it would be more than a week, but I probably wouldn't. If it did, I probably wouldn't want to give more than a week.
Maybe we can just add not to exceed 5 days.
Yeah.
This is that
Oh,
here.
it
This
says
is up to 5 days.
5
5
days.
days.
Oh,
there it
okay.
is.
Yeah.
Do we need to add within?
that's under part
within
9.
the year, though? Do we
No.
have to add that in there?
I
Just
think
those?
Paid
it's already
time
in
off.
there. It's
It's
under-
already there?
Yeah.
It's already in there.
Under
Annual
additional employee
evaluations.
benefits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kevin, at some point, I could help you build that spreadsheet. All you need to do is put in your hourly rate and it will automatically compute options.
Sure. Okay.
You know, what your bonus, you know, or PTO and wages are, what that total would be. And then from there, you just figure out, but you now you have a bottom line total.
Sure.
If I'm making $50,000 a year and I get a 5%, obviously that's a $2,500 increase. So, you know.
All right. Here's what that equates to in
You got
days.
4 days, is it 3 days?
Right.
Now,
Here would be
and
the
then
salary.
You could play with that and make sure it doesn't exceed 2,500 or
Sure.
it's close to, or
Okay.
whatever the case may be. And it wouldn't take very long to do that. It was just, I want to make sure I understand what, you know, how you want to work it.
Yeah. Okay.
But that would be pretty easy to do, and then you'd have it for, and Mike would have it to do your compensation analysis when you're having your AER discussion with the employee.
Be helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if we need to put in, or if we want to offer it a combination of 2 of them or 3 of them.
Well,
I know I offer that.
Right, and I think we should,
Right.
and that's where that.
Right. And so I have
Not to
our
exceed.
spreadsheet that I just got done with it, and I could probably clear this stuff out, and it's probably built in there already. I can look where you just need your salary, and it'll
Right.
you put
Work it
in,
out.
you know, you just put in 40 hours, or you put in $2,000. It'll equate to an amount. But
Jeremy, can you say again, we should also make the option where they could do two?
yep. So if they got 5%, say they wanted a $1,000 lump sum and they wanted the rest to go towards their salary, so they would get a, I don't know, 50-cent raise and a $1,000 lump sum,
Sure. Okay.
or 2 days and $500, whatever it may be.
Actually says on there, compensation take the form of any one or any combination of the following types of
It
compensation.
says in one place but not another.
Maybe
When we
from
get the
input
comments.
from the employee.
I probably should have read.
Not the- I was studying this last night.
Stay up late. Yeah, yeah.
That's what a fire will do to you.
I've been studying it for years.
Oh yeah, not it's in
Then 9.
Number 9.
the increase in compensation can take the form of any one or any combination of the following types of compensation may be determined with input from the employee.
Great, then that one's all done, we don't have to add anything to that part. Correct?
What paragraph was that?
9, top of page 5.
With input from the right. But I had a question about that whenever
Okay.
we get around to questions. I had a
Okay,
question about the whole paragraph.
well, since we're right there, do you want to go ahead and,
Well, for 9, the first sentence isn't a sentence. So I think we need to change that. Once if any has been determined, period, that's not,
yeah, it should be a comma,
Comma.
comma, and then a
So-
small t,
right?
the village administrator will create a recommendation as to the types of compensation to be increased for each employee. But my question was, what about the employee's desires? Or is that recommendation based on the employee's desire? The second sentence kind of alludes to that.
Because of the end of it with input from the employee. It sort of makes it,
But what it says is the increased compensation can take the form of one of, and may be determined with input from the employee. But when the recommendation for compensation increase, is that strictly the percentage only? Or is that how it's gonna be?
That speaks to the combination. I think that would say should be determined with input from the employee. So maybe.
I don't know, this came from the Ohio plan. I just
or if I understand it right,
inserted numbers.
So,
the increase and or decrease of the salary is dependent upon their evaluation. It is not a one number that fits all. It's based on their evaluation, correct?
well, the second sentence, as it's on here, says the VA, police chief, and mayor, as applicable, will create a recommendation as the type of compensation to be increased for each employee. Now, that could be wage, bonus, or PTO.
Well,
But you're making that, those
Maybe
three
the-
people are making the recommendation. All I asked was, what about the employee's desires?
So we just insert that. Yeah.
Seems to me
Well-
like the conversation was the employee gets to pick, was the
Right.
flavor of it.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like the employee says, I want this combination, then based upon what that percentage increase was gonna be, the department head makes it work for the time off, the bonus, and if there's something left over for a pay increase, based upon what the employee wants to do.
So
Yeah,
if
this
you go
is-
once
this
the
is-
And that's not what this reads.
Right.
So could you just
The incentive for the
Once the
employees,
recommended
not to make-
increase is determined, the VA, police chief, or mayor, then you could say,
to be?
can, with input from the employee, determine the form of any combination of the following types of compensation for payment. And then you would have to add PTO underneath there for C to be consistent with paragraph 8A.
Right.
Because PTO isn't part of what you have here. You have it under additional employee benefits, but I would move that 8.2
Yeah.
to C.
Yep.
That village administrator, chief of police, create, that whole sentence to me ought to go out of there.
Right, I mean, where you could just say, once the compensation increase has been determined, if any, meaning the 5%, 3%, 2.2875%, whatever it is. Once that's been determined, the VA mayor, can work with the employee to determine the following types of compensation,
Shall solicit the employee.
well, input as to how this compensation will be paid, or will be received, or whatever the right word is.
If you could email that to me, please.
And isn't that, if I may ask, isn't that the intent?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right,
It
but
just
it
needs to be
didn't read
clarified in writing, because the
Right.
writing doesn't match up with what the intent is.
that. Right. Because I know that's what we talked about, but
It's not how it reads.
not exactly. We want it to be clear and easy to understand.
Is that what it says?
That's all right.
Now,
Which is no,
so the only thing is, I mean, I kind of agree with the recommendation. I mean, I feel like you guys should have some input into that. If, say you're really short-staffed and you don't necessarily think that giving somebody 5 days off is going to work with, how you see things going for the year. Maybe you recommend, hey, it'd be great if you could. I just don't know if you can. The employee's input we need to take, but I think ultimately it needs to be up to you guys.
Well,
I'm gonna get someone like
Jeremy, what we
Ken.
always had before from the
he's been here
federal
100 years, if he takes leave every annual evaluation, he'd have 100 years of, or 100 weeks of vacation, and out of a 52-week year, he wouldn't have to work at all, so.
I don't
Good
know.
analogy.
I mean, if you get somebody that's a 15 and they get a week, I mean, I don't know what
Right.
5% equates to.
Right, me either.
If that's 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, I really don't know, but.
I mean, or there could be a hopefully not. There could be a point where we may have a hard time paying out a lump sum, or well, I don't know.
Jeremy, we always had workload considerations whenever it came down to scheduling by management side of it. You say the employee should be able to make the choice off of that, and in most cases, their desires will try to be met based on workload considerations. So, that's essentially how you can throw back to management, that management says, we don't really think this thing's gonna be rational or gonna be a way of doing it. What else can we come up with? So that way you leave them in the equation, but usually you'll try to go along with the employees.
Right. I just don't want to put us in a box to where,
That's why you put the workload considerations off.
yeah,
there.
I think, something in there about employee input will be considered in the final, whatever, award increase.
Compensation.
Yeah.
Increase.
Well, can we add to the one that's in parentheses below at the bottom there, the PTO granted as part of the increased employee compensation must be utilized in the year as given and cannot, unless otherwise approved by the mayor, be cashed in, carried over to subsequent years with workload consideration. In addition to workload consideration, right? Put it right in that sentence so it explains that you can't do it whenever you want to because the workload might not.
I think,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
honestly, our policy,
You think
the
it's in
attendance
policy?
really covers that, I think.
Ah.
I think. It used to.
But really, the department head would have the final say based upon some type of solid reasoning.
Right.
Can't do it because this is going on. Can't.
Well, yeah, like,
I feel like
During a
that
parade.
paragraph that you're referencing, I think that one needs to stay how it is.
okay. So don't add that to it.
We're allowing them to carry over that week of
No.
PTO.
No, it says cannot, right?
Correct.
Says
Compensation must be utilized in the year it is
year
given and
given
cannot.
unless otherwise approved by the mayor, be cashed out or carried over. So if it's approved by the mayor, it can be. So that's what it's saying. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
policy scheduling vacation leave 744 covers that.
Does it? Okay, then we don't have to put that in because Mike just said the policy covers the scheduling of vacations is considered to the workload.
I think leaving it with input from the employee, we're gonna try and match what
Right.
the employee wants, but if we can't because of work
Right.
or mission considerations,
Extenuating circumstances, it's,
that has to be adjusted and
Right.
kind of negotiated. Ooh, Tim, sorry, I can't do that, but I can do
Management
this.
has the right to
I'll
manage.
give you
Yeah.
1 day or 2
Probably
days.
put some language in there to reference
Yeah,
states.
Right.
yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
it boils
Break it
down
up.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
7.4.
Absolutely.
You want a bonus?
Do that. Reference
Yeah.
policy.
Vacation time right there. I like it.
Okay, because it says it in the policy, we're gonna put a reference to that policy number in there instead of having to spell it all out again. Got it? Understand? Okay,
In accordance to policies.
that was Ben's suggestion. I'll give him credit. Mike finding it, you suggesting we use it. Okay. Any other questions, Dave?
Well, yeah, I have several.
Okay, let's keep going.
On page 1, second paragraph, it says, it talks about village executive staff, mayor and council. So who is the village executive staff?
I didn't write this, so who?
The Ohio plan wrote this.
The Ohio plan wrote this. Okay, so we don't really need executive staff, just village, mayor, and council,
I did not
correct?
understand who.
Can we just take out
village
the two
executive
words?
staff is.
Executive
You
staff?
wanna say VA?
Where's it say
Yeah,
that?
the village,
Second paragraph.
Village executive staff? That's
this
fine.
policy outlines the annual process, criteria, evaluation components, and payment options to be used by the village executive staff, mayor, and council to
Yeah, they use that word
determine
a
the
lot.
wage and compensation.
yeah, I would
increases.
say we just lay out, just like that last paragraph we were looking at, you know, it'd be the mayor, police chief, and village administrator, and council.
Yeah,
So village mayor,
VA, PC,
Village
mayor,
and-
council,
police chief, and council.
piece of cake.
And then
to determine the
when I
wage.
get down to it, we'll have to change that in another place, because it says executive staff someplace else in here. too.
Okay.
The next
the
paragraph.
The very next
paragraph.
paragraph. Under 2.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Control find. We'll knock that thing out of there.
That doesn't make sense. Executive staff.
That's why you're in there and we're on council.
Sounds more private industry than it does.
Yeah, try reading this thing 10 times.
Sides,
And then read
left side, right
In
side.
paragraph, on page 2, the first full paragraph, it talks about, and I know I asked this and I don't remember the answer, so I apologize. But what or where is the Village of Enon employee compensation package? Is that a separate document, or does that really mean the personnel policy?
So, compensation.
Because
Should
that's
say
also mentioned on paragraph 5, page 3. I have that down.
Should that say compensation policy, which this is? Is that what they?
No, it means our packet.
The package is everything you're paying the employee and all
Yeah.
the perks and the benefits they're receiving.
Vacation, sick, medical, dental, vision.
It goes on further there to talk to that.
Does it say it on there? Oh, it does, you're right.
Well, I would,
Also, it defines direct and indirect.
right,
Gotcha.
I would not make compensation package capitalized.
Right, that almost seems like that's a document.
Like, and that's why I was,
Right.
that's what it read to me,
Right,
Jeremy, so
Okay.
that's why I asked.
I'd agree.
So
So
just,
if you just put those.
Compensation package needs to be
you take-
lowercase.
right,
take those
lowercase.
Small letters,
Okay.
Employee compensation package, yeah.
right, includes both direct and indirect, and then, under indirect, and do we need this sentence? You know, indirect is defined as however that reads, but it's very hard to read. We have the sentence before, direct compensation includes. Why can't we just go, take out that whole next sentence and say, indirect compensation includes blah, blah, blah?
Right.
Do we need that middle sentence in there? What's the value added to that?
I would agree, because the next sentence is the one that lays out what indirect compensation is.
Unless you get an employee who is very Or do I wants an explanation of everything and they don't understand what,
Well, the
that
first
those
sentence
portions
is-
are not paid directly to them?
We have had
The first
those.
sentence is compensation package is both direct and indirect. The next sentence says direct. Then there's this interim sentence, and then the fourth sentence says indirect compensation is.
Well, the one that says direct though says includes all that's paid directly to the
Right.
employee, and the next one says it's not paid directly to the
Fourth
employee.
sentence, right, it's indirect compensation includes,
Right.
so why do you need that middle sentence? Why do you have two sentences that talk about
The
indirect?
definition in there, what it is.
Let's crank the original.
So get rid of
and
the
find out.
definition sentence,
Yeah.
basically.
But they're both definition sentences. One just
Well,
uses the word
the
defined
last
as.
sentence I think is the one that needs to be in there.
Absolutely, it does,
I
but
agree.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's saying take out the one before that,
I
which
know.
really doesn't say,
I know
it's
that's what he
a
said.
15-word sentence and doesn't say anything.
Right, that was my point, or my thought, you guys are the committee, but that was just my thought. And then, there's a couple administrative things, well, there's a lot of administrative things, but on B, on page 3, B, says the VA shall present updated market comment to the mayor annually. And my question was when? Are we gonna do that?
I mean,
Is
page,
annually good enough, or do we say
It's on
it should be
page
closer
two.
to when the
oh, he said 3,
compensations
didn't
are?
he? Okay, thank you.
I mean, you can give it to them at any time, February or November, it doesn't
said
matter, as
E,
long as you
didn't
make
he?
a mark.
Where
Where
are you
you at?
talking?
On
It's
3B.
Annual
page
review
2,
of salary ranges.
Page 2,
Under
Oh.
paragraph 3B. it
Okay,
says to
3B.
Present to the information to the mayor annually for review and recommendations. And this is for salary ranges. All I asked was when.
Which we do that, it's usually, we set the wages in that first meeting in
Typically in
January.
January, yeah.
Like
So you
the,
would want this
before then,
before then, but,
Right.
so you would say
December 15th or something.
by December 15th, or
Right.
between 1 November and 15 December, or however you want to do it, but I just thought annually,
Because we usually set the wages in that
Right.
organizational meeting.
but for
Right.
the top 3, meaning Kevin and Mike and Tim, for them to understand, what they may need to do from a COLA perspective, then they need to have that at a certain time, and I just thought annually was pretty ambiguous. If you could define that better, it just makes it clearer. So, present to the mayor no later than, between 1 November and 15 December, or whatever you want it. I don't care what the dates are.
Or we could just say in the month of December, because that's before the January.
But I think they need time to look at it from a COLA perspective. To
Right.
See, or just from a wage perspective. Look, everybody else around is paying $28
Annually
an hour
by
for this
December
person.
1st or on
We're only
December
paying
1st or
24, we
something,
could lose them.
and sometimes it's real easy, so like the end of the year would be fine for the organizational meeting, but sometimes there is a lot of discussion on those, so you do need a little bit of time
Right.
in there.
I mean, so maybe like Kevin said, maybe it's 1 December.
Yeah,
Annually on December 1st or something, Just put
So-
a date in there.
So maybe that's for the updated market compensation, not necessarily the annual review.
No, it's not for the
Right.
annual review. This is for your salary ranges to determine whether we are competitive or not, is what I understand.
So on or near December 1st, so you don't have to come in on a meeting on Sunday.
Right.
Just the first sentence, not the rest of it.
I would just recommend
Okay.
making it annually more definitive. And then on 4B, on page 3, so motion to motion shall impact the placement of employee as determined by village council. Is that determined or is that approved? What does village council determine on a promotion or demotion? What are we determining? I'm just asking, should that be approved, as approved by the village
Probably
council?
we're approving recommendations rather than determining them, so.
But we don't necessarily have the authority to promote or demote somebody, do we?
Typically, the council's job is they set the positions, they establish the salary ranges, and then it's
Right.
in the department head's hands.
Right, but I didn't know what determined meant.
The salary range was as determined by the bill.
So we
So
could
the
just,
salary range is
So it's just as, this just
Yeah.
refers to the salary range,
Salary.
which is what we're
Salary.
doing right now.
So-
So that is
Promotion or
determined by
demotion.
us, correct?
So it's
Sounds
almost
like it.
salary range.
It's previously approved by village council?
by VA and police chief, just take everything else out.
Or within the approved salary range,
that sounds.
and then leave out village council? Because we really aren't,
Right.
I mean, to my knowledge,
Right,
involved in anybody's promotion or demotion.
right.
So just cross
So-
out village council and mayor.
Just, impact the placement of the employee on the approved salary range, and then you would be good. And under 4C,
Okay.
under newly hired administrators, it may be the same thing, but this one specifically says, as approved by village council. Newly hired employees shall be placed in the salary range as approved by village council. So there, because I'm saying, does council approve salary, initial salaries?
I think they mean by the range. I think how he wrote this was in the range.
Same thing, it's the
That's
same
right,
thing.
I think it's the
Yeah.
same thing, so I think you need to, it shall be placed in the approved salary range for their position as recommended by the top three. I would strike out as approved by village council, if that's the intent.
Which I'm pretty certain it is.
It would make
It
more
just doesn't
sense to
read
me,
well.
I don't,
If you pick it up and read it, you don't get that impression.
right.
Yeah, I think I asked
So I-
Mike about that, and he told me it was how you started the employee and what the top wage was.
Right, but this gives the impression that we approve new hired employees, pay,
No, I,
or where you put them on the salary range.
I agree with you.
Shall be
And that's-
placed in the
that's
salary
not
range.
what
You
we
The
approve the
salary
range.
for their
It's the
position.
We
department
approve the
head
range.
says this is where you go based upon this, and this is where you're
We're
gonna
not
start.
gonna get into discussion, when we hired Ben, oh, wait a minute, you put him at the
Yeah.
$25 an hour, I think you should be go to the 26.87 hour.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Ben wouldn't argue.
He's good with it.
And then, my note for 5 is fine now, but I had, because there at 5, it has annual compensation package, but that's all in small letters, and that would make more sense to me, so that's fine. Under 5A, under the AER, do we have a standard form for that?
So we talked about that. I don't know if we necessarily do. I know Mike uses something, and I think Kevin, you use something different.
I mean,
Right.
we
And
talk
we
about all
came
these
up
things
with
that need to be on
something.
the AER.
So, if I may, real quick, one of the topics that we discussed when I asked these guys to put stuff together was standardizing that form. And I don't know where it's at in the presentation to the committee or whatever. They
Is it this
came
one?
up with one.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
okay.
it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's his. Mine's a little bit more in depth, though. I have 16.
Well, I thought we talked about it and we crossed some off and I
Yeah.
thought that was what you told me to type up.
Well, we did, but I just have other stuff that our policy kind of.
Well-
I mean, I get it, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
what-
gave you a copy of
Why
it.
would-
Just
Let me
come
say
up with
this,
one for
from
everybody.
from experience, I know the police officer requirements are a little bit different than non-sworn personnel. So their evaluation is gonna be a little different. So we have to expect a little bit of difference in some of it, okay?
It's the same. I just have more.
It's gonna say, yeah, you're gonna have more because you're expecting more, okay.
Different, I'm just saying, there's an awful lot of information we're putting out there.
Yeah.
I'm just asking if there was a standard form.
And when they got together,
And
my
we start with
impression was
this-
they had a standard.
He starts with the standard and then he adds what police work requires.
No,
To
our-
add his policy, his own policy.
Ours is standard. I really like
Right.
his wording because it's not
Okay.
negative so much. It's like ours is a below or unacceptable, meets, and exceeds. I'm like, that's, I never really liked those harsh words on that. I felt they were harsh. But
I mean,
That's direct.
it is what it is, though.
it is. It is. Well, we are pretty direct down there, I guess.
State, if you get meat, you're doing pretty good.
Still needs to be
Really, you can
signed.
suck, but
That's what it is, meat.
Yeah, we actually amended that in 16.
Right,
We
that's
took
what
out
ours
that
is.
word. I'm kidding.
And under five.
Can I see that?
Under the
That
summary,
was the one that has.
or even under the
This?
previous paragraph number
This?
4,
Did he see this? It's been.
now you gotta put in COLA on the AER.
I'm sorry.
COLA on the AER.
Because honestly, I just copied it from the Ohio plans thing, and that's just how it ended up there.
And it is separate, completely
Right.
separate from your
I don't
AER.
think it belongs on the AER,
No,
because it's not approved, we don't know what the COLA is.
Right.
Totally
You
agree.
give somebody
It changes, yeah.
an AER in June,
right.
you know, why would COLA be on the AER?
Right.
Well, that brings up another thing. Have we decided
So 5A.
when we are going to do the AERs? Are we going to do them all at the same time? You know,
Put COLA, and under the summary it says COLA.
January 1st, or I don't know that we decided that.
This is in the first sentence, during the month of December within the first
I don't
2
know
weeks of
that we.
January.
Huh?
It says it'll be done during December or within the first 2 weeks of January.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I forgot that. Wasn't sure if we had set when we were going to have the employees' AERs done, and it is.
It's here.
what's
And
gonna
the-
happen to the COLA then?
So the COLA would be separate from your annual review.
And that makes
So you're
sense.
going to get, if you get 5%, you're going to get 5%, but the cost of living may increase. It would increase it after that.
So you take it out of this section and have its own.
5A4 and 5G would both go. Is that what you have, Kevin?
Right.
Yeah.
And then under process, we kind of talked about this earlier, but it says, the mayor shall review all AERs as well as conduct the AER on his too. But the mayor shall conduct AERs, is that prior or post presentation to the employee? How do you do it
Because
now?
the employee would have the right to sign it or not sign it, would it not be?
And the comment,
I've done it both ways. I've seen them before and I've seen them after from the department heads.
But don't they have a chance to rebut?
All of ours. Yeah. We do 'em.
They do.
I do them with them.
They do.
And it talks about that later, you know, all employees shall have the opportunity to meet in person with the VA, chief of police, or mayor to discuss, review, and provide input to their AER. But I just didn't know where it says Tim reviews the AERs, again, looking at it from a cold reader's perspective, I'm a new employee, I don't know anything about the village of Enon, and you're putting this out there so that employees have a clear understanding of the process of how they're gonna be compensated. When does the mayor review? Is that before or after?
Really, those aren't presented to the council whatsoever.
Right,
It says all final ARs be presented to the village council as recommendation for actions.
right, and I have that highlighted as
Well, so I think the recommendations for action should probably go away, but I think we talked about
Wanting to see them.
wanting to see the AERs. Just because.
But presented, but we don't have an
Right,
input.
right. We would have no input
It's a
or,
public record. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no problem with that, and then, but again, how do you wanna do it? Do you-
So let me tell you, it's worked, both ways, because I've had input prior to. Both department heads have come to me and said, this is, can you look at this? You have input? Yeah, I do have input, and I had some suggestions before it was presented, that worked very well, and then I've seen them after the fact, when it was just, it was just, that there was no issues really, with the particular employee.
Yeah, I can elaborate on that. We'll meet with him and say, hey, this is what I got. I just want to see if I can get another set of eyes on it. What do you recommend? He says, I like this. I switch it up. I give it to him, but then he always sees the final product, no matter what.
Which that makes more sense to me, and that's how we do it. You know, I'm a first line supervisor. I do my ratings of my people. I sign it, and then my boss goes through it, and you know, he checks. He could add stuff in there, but then he signs it.
That's required.
Right. Which
Does our form require one signature or two?
It just requires supervisor's
Supervisor.
signature. Sometimes we just like to have another set of eyes. It's not required. It's
And I
just,
agree.
yeah.
And then what
I
I'll
agree
do is I'll
wholeheartedly.
say, you know, keep up the good work, or thanks for your service, or something, then sign off on it.
If you don't
so
think
they
it's an
know.
issue, I just thought it was unclear, so, and that's fine, I'm just bringing up stuff I had.
No, I've given him. I've not sought input from the mayor, and I've just done them and gave them to him. And then sometimes I'm like, "Hey, can you see if I'm being too heavy-handed on this, please?" Make sense? Or generally, it's usually with a form of negative type, and you just want to make sure that you have another opinion. I mean, in fairness, that's the only time we've ever been like, "Hey, check this out," right?
But I do try to sign off on them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
The
the
ends
employees
of them.
know
Yeah.
that I have looked at it. So,
And then,
So,
so you can change, not change, I don't,
okay,
I was just
before you
asking.
go on, can we change the all final may be presented to the village council as recommendations for action as applicable, because that's there and it's,
Well,
if we need to, we
shall be.
can, but we
There's
don't
no
have to.
recommendation for actions that they would give
There's
us.
nothing.
Here's the new version.
So we need to take that whole sentence out?
Village council,
Period.
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 Yeah, that's the new ad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Period.
Wait a minute, say that one more time. All final AERs may be presented to
Shall
village.
be.
Shall be, that means they
They're
have
just
to.
going to give us a
That
copy.
means they have to be.
Right.
Right,
Okay, so shall be, okay.
Period.
I mean, I
That's
guess
just more for us.
for the good things,
It's just
I'd love to be able to walk up and say, hey,
Right.
we got
Wayne, you know, I saw your AR, that was awesome, you know? I
Okay.
wouldn't walk up and go, Bob Carroll, Ted or Alice, you know, your AR, AR sucks, why are you still on the job? I mean, I wouldn't do that.
Like next year.
No, but you know, if something comes up with an employee, we don't know if it's a long-standing problem.
Yeah, that's
we
true.
have no clue most of the time.
where it's habitual,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Or maybe you have a set of eyes on it that we haven't seen, and you're like, hey, by the way, and it's like, oh, well, why didn't you tell me? I mean, it's nice. Input.
Well, we should already, if we see something, should tell you anyway, but
Okay.
before the AERs come out, but.
So under 8A1, why is the 3 in parentheses?
8A, page,
Increase and decrease in ranges. 8AI.
Well, the parentheses should
8A
be on the other
I.
side. of
Page
zero.
4.
okay, I caught up. Go back, or whatever it was.
I mean, it says percent decrease, do you need,
Oh, a decrease.
it says,
How can you decrease somebody?
You can't.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we even.
Yeah, you can't
Can.
decrease somebody.
well, wait a minute, up here,
The
under
Ohio plan.
demotion,
Who wrote it?
promotion, demotion.
Ken?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We still don't have anything to do with promotion and demotions, we're the review.
But if it's a
Well,
demotion, then you're gonna get a, oh,
Decrease.
well, can they be demoted during your AER?
Never before, but again, this came from the Ohio plan, the people that wrote it. We just added and took little stuff.
All those plans are guidance.
Right,
What do we want for the village?
right.
I'm with you.
So,
And that's why
You
we're
can't
sitting
do a
here
decrease off of that, that's
at
a,
9 o'clock at night.
I would say we
8 o'clock.
can't do a decrease. I would say if they don't meet,
That's
they need to be put on a PIP or
right,
performance improvement plan.
That's what we have.
I mean, I knew what PIP was, but maybe not everybody. I got it, bro.
Something like that.
I think.
I don't think we would ever have a time where we would
Already scratched off.
take somebody's pay away. It would, if it got to that point, they wouldn't be an employee.
Exactly right.
We wouldn't decrease it, we'd remove it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be decreased.
Yeah, it's definitely a decrease.
So,
We'll take that out
Okay,
across the
next-
board. Done.
So if
Well,
there is,
Decrease.
Do we
I think
have-
maybe we put something in there if they aren't meeting expectations.
then they don't get a raise.
I think maybe a PIP is put in there, and I don't know if you guys do.
that would be part of
Would
the
that not be
performance
under that
policy.
person?
Yes,
I mean,
we
Yeah.
do
Not part of our
PITs.
compensation policy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we
Right.
do have that form and we do have a plan? for?
So we do PIPs because if you meet below expectations, then we are liable by allowing somebody to function at a below expectations. So as an employer, it's our job to train them up, and that's why we
You're
do.
not gonna decrease their salary in the process.
No, we've never decreased salary, but we do put them on a PIP. Usually it's 3 to 6 month, depending on whatever. They're reevaluated depending on what it is and what the challenge is. They're reevaluated periodically, and then they have a review again at the end of the PIP where the corrective measures were met by the employee and or by the employer, which then usually is obviously termination. And then,
That's performance, that's not compensation.
Right.
It's-
So yeah,
Yeah, not
that probably
compensation.
doesn't need to be in there at all.
yeah, we would just put 0%, where if it was below expectations, obviously, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, just from my own math perspectives, I say the word math? You like that?
I'll check you.
From my own math perspective, on 8A2, it means 1 to 5% in total compensation. So that's salary, and then whatever 5%, whatever their PTO is worth has a dollar value, and whatever a bonus is worth has a dollar value.
Right.
All three of those are part of the 5%.
Yes.
So PTO is included. I just want to make sure. I mean, I think it should be, but
That needs to
Says it.
finish colon, or is that a comma or a bracket?
The
Close parentheses.
on the other end of
Yeah,
that.
close
we're
parentheses.
gonna take all that out, right? Oh, yeah, there's a lot of administrative things, Kevin, and I can go over that with you later, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean to,
Kevin didn't type this. I did. Ohio Plan typed it. I inserted words.
You edited
I'll
it
take
as
full
for us.
responsibility of this, but again, I'm just going off what was given to me.
I mean, we have things that are right justified, things that aren't right justified.
I got you, Kevin.
There's capital, I mean, there's all kinds of crap.
I'll shield you.
So, but that's another one, parentheses I have down.
Oh, nice.
Number 9, I think we already
Look at my
did.
15.
Number 9C, we added
Yep.
PTO, right? And we took away from
Right,
8.2 and moved it to 9C.
moved it.
And then added benefits. We only have one additional employee benefits, and that's specialized in educational allowance. Are there any other additional benefits that we have for our Village of Enon employees?
So it's in discussion. I didn't want to bring it up in the meeting, but I might as well since we're here. I haven't got it drafted yet, but we talked about it with the benefit package, the split and all that. But I haven't got all the wording and researched it all, so it's in work in progress.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
we talked about
amended
first aid.
later. Yeah.
Yeah.
On number 11, it starts out, on page 5, paragraph 11, it starts out, the village administrator, police chief, and mayors shall make recommendation on it. So we already stated that in paragraph 9
Take it out.
above.
That
So
was easy.
we'll create a recommendation on the compensation. So we essentially say the exact same thing as the beginning sentence of 9 and the beginning sentence of 11. Can we just leave out that first sentence and just say the final amounts for compensation, because we're talking about approval of.
Well, that's a whole paragraph at the end. It just didn't go on one page, so 11 bleeds into 6, and it's a whole entire paragraph, which we can adjust it, not a problem, but
Probably more than that.
We're just taking out the first sentence of that whole
Yeah.
Well-
I'm saying-
11.
When I read the first sentence of paragraph 11, I thought to myself, I already read that in 9.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
I agree.
it's
So redundancy.
repetitive.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
of
redundancy, yeah.
But the next sentence says adjustments shall be determined by village council based upon the recommendation of the mayor with input from the village administrator and police chief.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's,
Wrong,
we don't
too.
want that either.
Right.
Yep.
Is that talking about something else, though? That it says to the percentage compensation. Up in 9, it's not talking about a percentage. So it's, I
I read that as far as individuals and not total, just as I read through it.
Which I think, now that you say that, that's probably why that's in there. That, you guys could come back with, okay, I have,
certain percentage.
here's how much our salaries are gonna increase per pay period. Here's how much lump sum payouts I'm gonna make. And it could come to council and be like, whoa, we probably, I think that's why that sentence is in there. But
Okay.
I would say the recommendation from council needs to happen before you guys would even come up with the amounts that you're gonna give. You know, if we contact our fiscal officer and say, okay, or, I mean, we would see it in our budget, but if we're not comfortable with giving out $20,000 right now, I think we would need to let you know that before you talk to the employee and come up with, here's what your award's gonna be. I don't know.
That, when you start talking about raises, increases, and all that type of stuff, that's always, well, at least in my mind, it's always kind of in the back of my mind, where are we at financially? Are we gonna be able to afford, that's always something that
It's a factor.
it's always something, in watching those, balances, especially towards the end of the year, you know, those type of things, you know, you take care of your people first. Can you know, we're gonna be able to afford to give a raise. There were a few years that we didn't give anything. If you got, well, Mike, you remember there was maybe a couple of years where things were so tight, we did not, Jeremy.
Yep.
So,
That's why the police officers' wages are set at that, because we know we can afford that for X amount, so, but I understand.
right,
Well, actually, if you cut that sentence up somewhat, where the final amounts and types of compensation adjustment made to go into brackets with consideration of the finances and budget of the village.
Right. That's what leads me to believe that that's the reason for it being in there.
Well, but that's already the last, well, I kind of read it as, you know, village council has absolute discretion for any compensation and or determine that some will not be made, and then if you wanted to add, you know, based on budgetary constraints.
So I can see where this could come into play. So we have top pay for an officer, 25. You've got an officer with COLA and all that. They're above that annual raise. They've stayed for 3 years, so now they're above our operating cost of top salary by a COLA increase. It comes up to their annual evaluation. It shows they could get a 5%. We're roughing around within our budget, right? Because we've retained everybody. We as an employer say, hey, listen, we cannot increase your hourly rate by 5% because it's not, we can't afford that. We're going to have to give you a 5% of your average annual because we can't afford that hit on overtime and all that for operating costs. You know what I mean? So that's where the employee has input, but the employer has the final say on how that bonus / compensation is going to take place. Does that make, maybe that's why they wrote it that way. It's just me guessing.
Right. No, that makes sense to me.
So the wording in it, possibly why it's written like that.
it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, it's like, we're gonna have to hold salaries steady for this year, with maybe an exception or two, but, yeah.
In that paragraph 11, approval of recommended annual compensation adjustment. I think that paragraph just needs to be rewritten, because right now it's kind of all over the place. You know,
I agree.
They approve it, then later council has discretion to disapprove. You know, the final amounts shall be determined by, you know, and again, we don't determine their rates. Approval is based on village council, who has absolute discretion to modify, blah, 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 based on budgetary constraints, because we wouldn't do it for any other reason
Right.
than that, or we shouldn't be
Right.
doing it, because that's outside of our purview as council. I mean, that's Mike and Kevin and Tim on that. However, it's,
Right there, check that out, that's the OG one.
let's see, but then
It's not bad.
the final method of total compensation adjustment shall be determined on the recommendation, but who approves it? Because this paragraph says this is the approval process.
I agree.
So this doesn't answer the question who approves it, and I'm not so sure all this verbiage in paragraph 11 tells me who approves it.
I
It
agree.
needs to be clear if we're gonna
Clear.
stick with our policy of paragraph 1.
Yeah.
One boy's input.
I agree with you. It needs to be clear, that's for sure.
So that needs cleaned up.
I think he's cleaned up, and I can help with that, or I don't mind helping with that, or, you know, the committee can do it, but it's just, I don't
Actually,
think it's,
The person that
the
actually,
verbiage doesn't match the title of the paragraph, which is approval process.
what actually approves it is the budget.
Now,
We work with the budget.
somebody
and the-
approves it, and it's
the
quote unquote
fiscal
village
officer.
council.
Which shouldn't be.
I mean, I don't understand how village council has absolute discretion to modify any compensation adjustment. How is that true?
We actually recommended, when I proofed this the first time, to take that out, because if you took that with word
Yes.
for word, you could have all kinds of chaos.
Right.
Absolutely.
No disrespect. You could have all these different opinions
Sure.
of employee, and you could have all kinds of chaos.
And
I think we took that out. Didn't we
A
take that out?
5-3 vote,
May
I'm
have
sorry, a 5-1
work
vote,
it off
or
like
3
three
to
different
3
drafts.
vote.
Right.
You could have.
You'd have to be the
Deciding vote, you'd
Plus,
have.
what you have to think about it is, should there be a disciplinary action, and it can actually come before council, have,
Oh,
that's where you've got to
Oh,
have
man,
that differential between,
you need that separation.
Yeah,
That could be a
so-
nightmare.
you know,
However you come up with, make the approval process, or Mike, make the approval process, the approval process. But I don't think the intent was for village council to be, we approved the ranges
Right, exactly.
based on
Budget.
the salary inputs from the other municipalities or sectors and COLA. Those two combined should be the factors for our COLA, for our salary ranges for each position. And those are gonna adjust up normally every year because inflation, COLA, or the fact that, depends on the job. If you have a water person that all of a sudden there's a major water problem in the general area, or there's new state requirements and now they have to get more certifications, we may need to bump that up because we can't keep somebody at $25 an hour if Village B is paying $30 an hour. So,
The market,
The
what I
market.
refer to.
Right.
And
The market, what's the market bringing?
So I think the budgetary constraints, we would know well ahead of time of you guys giving out your AERs and coming up with awards. I feel like we would let you guys know in December. I mean, all of us would see it in December. Okay, we're gonna be tight here. I don't,
and the,
lump sums aren't gonna be the way to go right here.
and the last question is, when do you advise the employee, on this topic, when do you advise the employee of their new compensation? Because it's not at the AER, because the AER is just feedback, we don't need COLA in there. If you give the AERs in December, we don't approve the rates until,
Right, so,
January.
so ours is
And
March
then-
1st
and
is
then
when your new
once we
pay
have the
starts.
approved rates, then the big three
Right.
can decide where Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice fit on those, within that range.
Right.
But then, from a compensation standpoint, when do you find out what the new salary is?
Well, is that if they're over outside the salary range? Because I'll tell you, when I review people at
They
6
can't be
months,
outside the salary range, because we,
Well,
council
we have
would have
different
adjusted
things
that.
on calendar
Well-
and different years on
Based
Typically, it
on-
happens in
things on
January.
fiscal.
yeah, because when you have we have like I have officers come up their 6 month, I give
Well, we
them
have
raises
things that are
based off
on
their works,
calendar
and
year, too.
my understanding is council approved that money, so I just give it to them and make notice of it. So I mean, in a sense, we kind of already do it without asking council, because we already ask you for
No,
a
this
range.
isn't- I'm not asking.
totally
You're talking about for the annual.
I'm asking from a-
No,
if
that's how
you do
that's
this
how
to
my
a new
office
employee,
operates.
I'm with you.
When am I told of my new salary?
That's a good question. It should be clear in here. I agree.
Ours is March 1st, which I think gives us enough time from December, January to do your AERs come back to us with, okay, here's the new wages. By that time, we would have what our COLA is going to be. And March 1st is when this is when ours happens. March 1st is when our new salary takes place.
And I'm fine with that. All I'm recommending is
Me
that.
too.
Right, it'd be laid out.
That be told.
Yeah.
You want a date, you want a time, when is it gonna happen? January?
Yep.
March, February?
I'm kind of Rhett Butler as far as the date, but,
Right.
and don't say you don't understand that, because you're on the
I understand that.
I understand it because I've kind of asked that question. So all in favor of March 1st? No, I don't know. What day sounds good?
Well, can we just say the first payday in March, whatever?
Well, I know the mayor and the council usually have it done about mid-February at the latest. I don't never see you guys discussed COLA any later than that. It's
Yeah,
pretty-
typically I try to do it the COLA part, I try to do that
Right.
in that first organizational meeting.
Right, that's what we've been doing.
Which, I mean, I don't know if it says in there you have until the second week of January to complete your AER. So I don't know if February 1st is enough time to
Yeah,
make those changes, get it to payroll,
I'd be
and
pushing it.
February 29th?
It's a great day.
Every
No.
4 years, you get a pay
Yeah, there you get a pay
You could
raise.
just say, I like
The following year.
I like March 1. That's just a nice
So we
round
try
number.
March 1, and if
Sounds
it
good.
for some reason doesn't work out, we go back.
Yep.
Massage it.
I think you just said it's not set in concrete. Okay, got it. All right, anything else?
Somebody needs to quiet Paul down, he's been a little bit too rowdy this whole.
we've been talking up here.
Where does that
He's been
March
giving
1st go?
input.
It doesn't, I would think it would be number 12, personally.
If there's an 11.
There is.
If there is an 11.
There is an 11, but
Because
there's number
8's
12, right?
missing. Yeah, 12, March 1st.
So,
Kevin, when you rewrite this, make sure.
any approved salary adjustments or any approved compensation adjustments
Will be effective 1
1
March.
March.
So they get their first day off March 2nd. And they take it out of, okay, never mind. Okay, anything else? Everybody happy? Kevin, you okay? Good? Good.
I'm good.
Jeremy? Then make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. 8:23.
Go with longevity bonus will be
Our
retroactive.
last